Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation. If you've ever struggled with money or abundance, then do we have the Abundance Project show for you. Today I'll be talking with Derek Rydell, the best-selling author of Emergence, the world's leading expert on the law of emergence, and the author of a new book that's abundantly overflowing with goodness, The Abundance Project. And that's just what I want to talk with him about today, about the top ways for more wealth, health, love, and happiness. That, plus we'll talk about rubber snakes and crimped nozzles, the power of mac and cheese, gotcha, K-Love and K-Rich, adopting monks, and what in the world chasing white poodles has to do with anything.
Somebody's read the book.
Woohoo! Welcome back to the show, Derek. Are you ready to shine?
I am ready to shine, my brother.
Awesome, awesome. I know we've had you on before. We've talked about your backstory, but it's important with this book, I think, that we go there again. So maybe before we dive right into things, can you tell us, did you have much abundance in your earliest years?
Well, I had some abundance. Yeah, we did okay. But then when my parents divorced, we lost all that abundance. And in fact, at one point we were living, and it was a very shocking experience. Mm-hmm. We were living in a beautiful home, a tennis court estate home, and we had no power, no water, or no, we had water, but we had no power. So we had to take cold showers and sponge baths. And I became ashamed and didn't even want my friends to come over. And, we were living like broke people in this house, and then eventually couldn't even do that anymore and had to move out. And I lived in a garage, me, my sister, and my mom in a friend's garage, in a little makeshift room in their garage. And so then I began to experience some pretty challenging things. And a part of me made a decision at that point, I would never be in that situation again. And it created a challenge, because what was interesting is that when I was growing up and my dad was getting successful and we were having more, mm-hmm. the more he had, the more our family seemed to fall apart. And so I had made a decision then, I will never be like that. So I'm not going to be the successful businessman, because that's going to hurt my family and it's going to hurt me. And then after he left and we went broke, I was like, I'm never going to be that. I'm going to be a successful person. So you can see it created kind of an interesting polarity in me. I was confused, let's just say.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, it sounds quite conflicted, and it sounds like the majority of people out there today is yes. Darned if we do, darned if we don't, and we don't have any roadmap to follow.
Exactly. And that was it. And that's what that set me on a journey of, was exactly that. I have to find the roadmap. I have to find the roadmap that reconciles these two seemingly opposite parts of me. Mm-hmm. The artist and the lover and the spiritual man and the one that wants to connect and be connected and be creative and be authentic and be free, and the part of me that wants to be secure and have abundance and have structures to support me in being creative and being free. And they didn't seem to connect. In fact, I used to joke, my artist heart and my dad's business head never met. He thought Pearl Jam was something you put on toast, and I thought Dow Jones was his partner, Mr. Jones. So there was an issue, right? And so but that pain and that challenge sent me on a journey to discover, how can I really truly be in the world, play a big game, be abundant, be successful, and remain connected in my heart and my art and my soul. And the Abundance Project, and what I call the Abundance Principle, and the work that I teach in that, is the culmination of decades of that question and that struggle, and going on one side to the loss of the other, and then going on to the other to the loss of this, until eventually I found that point of integration. And for many people, heart-centered, spiritually minded, creative types, we do share a lot of these kinds of baggage. We don't trust the world power structures. We've rejected a lot of that, masculine energy in the world. And as a result, we're trying to make an impact in the world, be spiritual, heart-centered, but it's hard to be a light in the world if you can't pay your light bill. So we have to kind of, embrace the wishbone, yes, but also get a backbone. We have to really get integrated and learn how to master the energy of money and master the energy of abundance so that conscious, heart-centered people can now begin to lead the way, can be in great positions of authority and power, and have enough to fund their visions and their art and in the world. And so that's what the Abundance Project really is, the culmination of all of those questions and all of those challenges.
Woohoo! I like how you call it backbone, because what I tell people, and I'm not ashamed to be abundant, and I'm not ashamed to welcome more abundance in, I call it the Archimedes principle, which is to say, give me a large enough lever and I can move the world. Whether we agree with the way that the world operates today or not, if we want to make a true, meaningful impact on a global level, it helps to have that lever.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And we're not here to struggle and suffer. And it's not more spiritual to be broke. In fact, didn't one master teacher say, I've come that you may have life and have it more abundantly? I think I read that somewhere. So it was Jesus, by the way, for those of you like, what is he talking about? So yeah, look all around you. Look at nature. You know, is there just enough stars in the sky to get by? Are there just enough grains of sand on the beach to get by? Or do the trees have just enough leaves to, get by? No. All of nature is lavish, opulent, and abundant, overflowing with a cornucopia of good. And we are a part of that. And we're supposed to reflect and express that same level of abundance in our unique way. It's not only not spiritual to be broke, it's more spiritual, more conscious to reflect the abundant, lavish, opulent nature of life. And it doesn't take away anything from anyone. And I'm sure we'll get into some of these ideas more deeply. It doesn't take anything away from anybody for you to be abundant, for you to be rich and successful, when you understand the real nature of abundance is not material. It's energy, it's spiritual, it's consciousness, right? It's like a radio station. If you were all tuned into the same station, and I crank it up as loud as possible and blast that music, and it's awesome. And then does that mean when you go to tune into that station, there's going to be less music? And then by the time if 1,000 of us tune into that same station, by the time we get to the 1,000th person, will there be no more music left? No, of course not. It'll magnify it. It'll magnify the music because the music is actually an invisible signal that is not material, and therefore it's unlimited. And that's the truth of that beat of abundance, that symphony of success that's playing right where we are right now. When we tune into that station, as you were saying in the beginning, station K-Rich, K-R-I-C-H, then we can manifest abundance and not only not diminish anybody, but actually multiply the good for everybody.
Thank you. It's resonant. It's frequency. It's getting in attunement. And when we become the tuning fork, others come along for the ride. But if we go back, was it your near-death experience with a diving accident? Was it taking a stand with God? What was it that caused you to go, I'm not taking it anymore. Things are going differently?
Wait, do that again. Do that face for those of you that are watching the video. The short-circuiting face.
Yes.
That's good. You're very good at that. So as I talked about in Emergence, and the last time we talked, there was an experience where I've been struggling to improve myself for many, many years and get over my hard childhood and all those things we just talked about. And after a decade or more of self-improvement, the only thing I'd improved was my ability to describe why my life was so messed up. I got really good at that. Had a lot of improvement in my ability to talk about why things didn't work. Mm-hmm. But instead of really growing and improving, I felt more frustrated, more inadequate, got addicted to drugs and alcohol, and then almost died of an overdose. And then that wasn't enough to crack me open. I figured I just need to work harder, work stronger, attract bigger. And a few months later, I was doing a film and went diving alone after the film started falling apart. And I got trapped in a coral reef. And I remember praying to get lost from everything above. And I did get lost, so be careful what you pray for, and be more specific. That wasn't the kind of lost I meant. Yeah. And I got trapped, and nobody knew I was there, and it was getting dark, and I was surrounded by fire coral and giant spiked coral that was inches from me the whole time, ready to puncture my lungs, my stomach, my throat, my face. And at a certain point, I was so exhausted and so just out of options that I knew I was going to drown. And all that was left was to surrender, really surrender, unconditional surrender. Not just, God, if you get me out of this, I promise to go to church on Sunday, because I tried that and the universe wasn't making a deal that day. And in that moment of surrender, something really cracked open in me. And I saw that this guy that I had been trying to fix and improve was a fictional character, an amalgamation of peer pressure, parental fantasies, and all of that. But that there was this other self that was already whole and complete. So he didn't need to be fixed and he could not be improved. And it was just a flash, but that radically changed my perspective, my point of view. And I ended up ultimately in that moment, in the next moment, I was out of that space I'd been trapped. And I was looking in at the space I'd been in. Somehow I got out. I don't still know exactly how. But I ended up pulling out of society to understand what happened to me. And that was the beginning of the emergence process, where I realized that the way we were meant to develop and grow is backwards, that we're not an empty shell showing up and we have to fill ourselves up. We've already brought everything with us. And this is very key to the abundance, although at the time I hadn't made that direct correlation yet. I just knew that there was a seed of potential and a seed of purpose in all of us. And when we cultivated the right conditions, when we came into integrity with it, it would begin to emerge in our life, like all of nature. So as I began to teach that and walk that and do that, my life got incredibly abundant. I went from, being broke and broken and literally suicidal, living on 19 cents mac and cheese, as you mentioned in the beginning, the mac and cheese, and ultimately to, traveling the world, $1 million homes, a 7-figure business, all of those wonderful things. But then as I was teaching it, before that actually happened, things were getting better for a while. And then all of a sudden, everything began to fall apart again. And that's the mention you're talking about, where I took a stand, to God. And I basically was in my apartment and I was on the verge of being evicted because I hadn't paid rent, and I was broke again. And I was really pissed off at God, at my idea of God. And I had my Gary Sinise moment, like in Forrest Gump, where he's on the ship, bring it on, God. And I sat in this chair and I said, I'm not getting out of this chair in my little faux leather meditation chair. I said, they're going to have to pry my cold, lifeless hands from this faux leather before I move. But I'm going to sit here until I know the truth. Either this is real or it's BS, but one way or the other, I'm not moving until I know. Because I was upset. I thought I was doing everything right. I was a good spiritual boy, and still I was broke again. And at some point in the middle of the night, this voice spoke to me, or this energy spoke to me, and it said, you made your bank account your God, your source. Because I had been saving, right? I had a savings account, but I didn't want to spend it. And so instead I started putting everything on credit card. And I was racking up credit card debt. And then when those filled up, I had to use my savings account. And eventually I had all this debt and no more money. And the voice said, when you make something outside of you your source, the universe is set up to fail you. And it said, because when you make something your source, you have to start giving it your power. You have to sell off pieces of your power in order to get the thing you think that bank account, job, boss, partner, parent, whatever. When you believe anything outside of you is your source, you have to give it your power, and you become enslaved to it. And you can't really truly be authentic and give the authentic gifts you're here to give. And little bit by little bit, your ability to produce the fruit of your own kind diminishes. And what happens to a branch that doesn't produce the fruit of its own kind? It gets pruned, right? What did Jesus do to the fig tree that wasn't producing figs? He cursed it and it died. So we're here to be something very unique and to do something and give something, but we can't do that if we think our source of safety, security, support, or supply is outside of us. So this voice said, this is what you did. This is why you're broke. And then as it talked, I felt this like a like a valve opened up and all the stress drained from my body, and this peace came over me. And it was the first time I experienced that peace that passes understanding, that peace that has nothing to do with conditions. And I just rolled into bed and fell asleep into a deep sleep. And for the next few days, I kind of walked around in this sort of blissful space, feeling like all was well, even though nothing had changed physically. And I got a call, and it was my former acting agent, and they said, "I know that you don't do commercials anymore because you're too spiritual." I was crazy, and they said, "But this person just called out of the blue looking for you." And I knew that that was answered prayer. I knew that was a demonstration of this revelation I just had. And I said, "Okay, I'll go on that audition." And I booked the commercial. It was split into two commercials, and I made more for 2 days' work than I'd ever made it in an entire year. And but the key was I could never have imagined or planned how that would happen. I had to be available to this source, to this channel that has infinite organizing potential, that is way much more than my little mind can imagine how I'm going to get what I need. When I leaned on, instead of leaning on resources, I leaned on the source, then it found the quickest, direct way to bring forth what was needed to support me and going forward. But it also began the beginning of me learning how to lean more on that inner source, how to lean and live more by insight than eyesight. And that began my ability to begin to walk out on that invisible bridge and start to build my life more and more from that. And when I started teaching the emergence work, this aspect of the emergence process, which is stage 4, what appears missing, is that whatever's missing is what we're not giving. I realized that was the fundamental principle of abundance, because we literally have everything within us. And all the ways we're waiting for things to change, or waiting for things to be better, or waiting to feel confident or safe, are all the ways we're stopping and blocking our own abundance from unfolding. So that was the experience, those experiences together. And then when I began to teach it was what really showed me, and continues to show me, by the way, in deeper and deeper ways, how we're really meant to create. And we're meant to create out of nothing, out of that void, out of that womb of creation within us. Just like everything we see came. It came from the Big Bang. That came out of nothing. Out of nothing came everything. We're meant to create the same way.
Woohoo! Going back earlier, there's so many directions I want to go with this, and I'm going to go towards the middle or latter part of your book, actually, because you were talking about, you talked about flow, you talked about water, you talked about valve, all of these allegory terms, if that's the right word for it, metaphorical terms.
Metaphorical motifs, whatever.
Yeah. For flow, which gets to the word circulation.
Yes.
You were hoarding, you were holding on to,
Yes.
you weren't willing to jump into the flow.
Yes, you just hit it. You just hit the key word. Perhaps the most important word for all life on this planet. In the terms of this dimension, circulation is the key. Wherever there is greater circulation, there is greater growth, greater power, greater energy, greater abundance of whatever. In any system where there's more circulation, whether it's your body, whether it's nature, whether it's water, wherever, even whether it's a mechanical, electrical circuits. If there's greater circulation, there's greater power, it gets generated, and there's more abundance. So that's where there's less circulation or a lack of circulation, then we begin the process of stagnation and diminishment and ultimately the death of a system. So if water doesn't have circulation, it becomes a swamp, right? So in any area where there's not circulation, stagnation occurs. And to have circulation, you need a circuit. And so if you have stagnation in your life, it's because you have a broken circuit. And the law of circulation says that you can't give what you don't have, so you have to have it. And then you can't keep what you don't give, so you have to release it. And then you cannot sustain what you don't receive. You have to allow it. So it's one complete breath. You have to breathe in, then you have to breathe it out, and then you have to allow more new oxygen to come back in again. If all you try to do is breathe out all the time, you'll die. If all you try to do is breathe in all the time, you'll die. If you breathe in and you breathe out, but you don't breathe back in, you'll die. You need all three pieces, right? And a lot of us heart-centered, spiritually minded people are all about breathing out. We're giving and shining and sharing and giving and shining and sharing and hoping one day we'll get ours. But we're giving from a place of not having filled ourselves up. And so we become exhausted, we become burned out. It's not sustainable. Or we're giving and giving, but we're not allowing the love and to come back in again. And again, we become depleted, we become resentful, we get burned out. So circulation is the key. And you were talking, really quickly, you were talking about also like certain words that we don't realize even what they mean. And like the word currency, which we think is money, but it actually comes from a root that means current, that means flow, right? We look at a word like affluent, which we think means wealthy, but it actually comes from a root that means to flow or to flow into. So again, we see that everywhere, the real underlying nature of wealth is all about the greater volume or velocity of flow, of circulation, of energy. That's the equation that equals abundance. And you start to really see that wealth is a story, and we haven't been telling the right story. We've been telling a story of zero-sum games and diminishing pie, and that it's material and you get a piece, now there's less. That has nothing to do with the real story of wealth and abundance, which is about flow. Even interestingly, the word salary, which we think means what we collect every week from our job, actually comes from the word salt, because the Romans were paid in salt. So why is that important? It's important because we think money is our wealth, dollar bills, whatever. It's not. It's just one symbol that's carrying and expressing or representing the real wealth, which is this flow of energy, whether it flows and appears as salt, flows and appears as chickens or spurs or fruit on a tree or dollar bills in your bank account. The real wealth is the flow, is that energy. And when you start leaning on that and developing and growing that versus being too attached to the outer symbols of wealth, that's the beginning of real freedom. That's the beginning of having the ability to create abundance in your life, no matter what conditions you face.
Woohoo! That leads us to, I'm going to go back to almost the very beginning of this question, because I heard some people in the audience going, well, that takes me out of the equation when you said you can't give what you don't have.
Right.
What do you mean by that? And do people have different kinds of currency without realizing it?
Yeah, absolutely. So the idea that you can't give what you don't have means you have to give it to yourself first. So just like the breath, right? You have to take the breath in. So for example, if you are in a situation where you are waiting for somebody to love you, validate you, approve of you, appreciate you, whatever the case may be, recognize you, reward you, if you're waiting for that, you're going to be waiting forever. As I say in Emergence, whatever you're waiting for, you are waiting with, and you're weighing it down and you're holding it back. And this is the ultimate weight loss program, WAIT, because it doesn't matter what anybody else is doing. Whatever you're meeting is what you're bringing. So you want to take, and I invite all of you even now to think about this. Where in my life am I saying something's missing? In a relationship, in a job, in a project? Like, there's not enough peace here. People are so crazy. I wish they would just relax and chill out and be more peaceful. Or I wish there would be more, I wish this person would validate me or appreciate me. Find one of those areas, and then let's flip it and go and ask the question, whatever the quality is, if I totally validated myself, if I totally loved, respected, approved of myself, again, fill in the blank with whatever quality, then how would I treat me? How would I take care of me? How would I show up today? How would I show up in this job, in this relationship? So let's just say you're waiting for appreciation. You wish for once your boss or your husband or your wife would finally just appreciate you. Mm-hmm. Okay, if I totally appreciated me, if I totally got how worthy and valuable I am, how would I take care of myself? How would I show up in this relationship? What would I do? What would I say? What would I ask for? What would I stop doing? And if you ask that with sincerity, you'll start to get guidance. You'll start to remember and reflect, oh, well, I'd start taking better care of myself. I'd start exercising. I'd start making time for me instead of always making time for everybody else. I would sit down and have a conversation and really express whatever. It'll start to bubble up. That's showing you what's missing, what's trying to emerge in you. And as you honor that and start taking care of yourself, start appreciating yourself or validating or loving yourself, you will start activating those qualities. You'll start to feel filled up again. You'll start to feel empowered again, and you'll start to have the realization that your feeling of being loved, valued, respected, appreciated never did have anything to do with the other person. It had everything to do with you. And then, in fact, they were giving you a gift and were being your teacher by not giving you that so that you could find it where it has always been and always will be, within you. Now you're empowered. Now you're filled up. Now you have something real to give. Now you can go back to that space and begin to give the love, the appreciation, the respect to your partner, to your boss, to that environment. And in that way, now that quality not only has filled you up, but now it magnifies, it multiplies. There's now more of it for everybody. And so that's the process. And then you have to be aware and receptive as that quality starts coming back at you now, and receive it. When somebody gives you love, gives you a compliment, don't deflect it. When they say, oh my God, your hair looks so great today, you're like, oh, this old ratty thing. Or, oh my God, that dress or that suit, man, you're looking good. You're like, oh, it's no big deal. I just kind of threw it on, right? Or somebody compliments you and you immediately have to compliment them back. Mm-hmm. Don't do that. Receive it. So you fill yourself up by asking that question. You now have something to really give. You give it wherever it appeared to be missing, and then you receive whatever love, validation, recognition comes back to you. That's a complete cycle, and that's how you heal that circuit. And you'll start to experience more and more abundance unfolding in that area, but also in other areas as well.
Woohoo! I want to go into the 7 gifts. I think that's important to go into from here. But before we do that, a question that came up is, do we need to know it before we act it?
Do we need to know it? Meaning? Do
we need to know that we are affluent, that we are abundant before we act that way? This is the chicken and the egg and the seed and the apple.
Right. Yes. He's done his homework. So yeah, well, we need to have the beginnings of an awareness that this is what's true, that this is, if it starts to resonate with you, we need to begin to have an awareness that, there's a principle here. I have the abundance is in me. And we need to understand the principle before we can start practicing it. Mm-hmm. Some people do it automatically, have done it naturally, and don't even know what they're doing or why it's working. They're just naturally doing it. But like a scientist, you first have to have a theory, and then or a premise, and then you have to begin to run experiments to test and see, is this true? Is this true? Does this work? So we're talking about the premise now. We're talking about the theory. We're talking about the principles. But in order to make it real in your life, you have to actually practice. That's why we call this the Abundance Project. You have to make a project of this. We could have called it the Abundance Experiment, where you do a series of experiments to really prove this principle. So now you guys are hearing it, right? As Buddha said, once you hear the Dharma, you can never go back. Mm-hmm. You're hearing the truth. Infinite abundance is in you. Whatever's missing is what you're not releasing, generating, circulating, because it's all in you. That's the truth that all the great masters have taught. Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, Lao Tzu, Kuan Yin, whatever. They're all fundamentally teaching the same thing. Whether they called it the kingdom of heaven within you,
Yeah.
nirvana within you, the Tao within you, it doesn't matter. It's all the same thing. So we have to hear that Dharma. We have to hear that truth and go, that's interesting. That resonates. There's something here. And then we have to practice and experiment with it. We have to actually now do the work, do the process I just said as one simple example. And that's why in this Abundance Project, the book, The Abundance Project, 40 Days to More Wealth, Health, Love, and Happiness, the 40 days is you committing to a project, to an experiment period, where you're going to practice these principles in a way that it starts to develop new habit patterns, new habits, a new mindset, where you begin to think like an abundant person thinks, feel like an abundant person feels, walk and talk and act like an abundant person does. And as you develop those habits, then abundance becomes more and more natural and ultimately automatic. So that's why, you do have to have an awareness of what it is before you do it, because otherwise you won't know what you're doing, right? You won't know what you're here to practice. But you don't necessarily have to fully believe it. So that's maybe a more appropriate question. Do I have to believe all this to get results? No. You have to know the principle and how to practice it, right? If for example, if you've been sinking every time you've gotten in water, you don't know how to swim or float. And somebody comes along and shows you teaches you the law of buoyancy and shows you how to align your body with the principle of buoyancy while in the water, you're going to float. Is the water going to say, well, I'd like to float you, but you come from a long line of sinkers and I'm afraid it's just not in the cards. Or, you've been sinking for so many years, it's going to take you so many years to float. No, there is no time in the manifestation once you're aligned with the principle. The time it takes is the time it takes us to understand and practice the principle properly. But the minute you're in alignment with that principle, you float. You get in a plane, and if that plane is designed according to the laws of aerodynamics, you can be the most evil person in the world and you're going to fly, right? Or you can be the nicest person in the world, and if you get in a plane that has no wings, you're not going to get off the ground. It's principle, it's not personal. And that's really important to know, because a lot of you are feeling like, oh, I'm just not wired for abundance. I'm not wired for wealth and success. I'm just going to not even try this lifetime. No, that's not true. You just haven't understood the principle and how to apply it. And that's what we're talking about and what I teach in the book.
Yeah, some people would even say God doesn't want me to be wealthy, or God is holding how does the expression? God is resentful for me, something to that. We won't even go down that road. Instead, we're going to go to the more positive side. Let's go from it's not principle but personal, sinkers and floaters, and let's go to the 7 gifts or 7 abundance activators. We'll go maybe to the first one, which it's giving out. But I got to ask about singing at retirement homes.
Yeah, well, so let me tell you really briefly. So just so people can follow us, there's the first principle is the great reversal, which is the realization that life is not happening to you. It's happening through you. It's coming from you, that everything you need is already within you. That's step 1. Step 2 is the big betrayal, which we talked about. Whenever you put your source outside of you, it'll fail you eventually. So you have to learn to lean on the source, not on the resources. And the third piece is understanding wealth or abundance is invisible, not material. It's invisible, it's inexhaustible, and it's in you. So now the natural question becomes, okay, great, Derek, I'll bite. It's all within me, it's invisible. Now how do I get it out of me? How do I start getting more of it out? You're saying whatever's missing is what I'm not giving. How do I start giving more? How do I start circulating more? So the 7 gifts is the framework. You could think of them as the 7 channels through which you can circulate this energy. And ultimately, all 7 channels need to be open and need to be flowing. For some of you, there's just a drizzle or a drip, or it's completely been sealed off and calcified because it hasn't been circulating. So they have to get open and they have to start flowing. And I'll first say the 7 gifts in brief, and then we can dive into the first one. So it's giving out, giving away, giving up, giving in, giving thanks, giving to yourself, and forgiving. Those are the 7 gifts. So giving out. Giving out stands for your time, talent, and treasure. And so this is based on the idea that, for example, let's start with time. Mm-hmm. We believe that we want to give our time to certain things, right? We want to give more time to our family, our loved ones, to charity or philanthropic causes, or to our passion project, whatever. But we say, I don't have enough time. And so we're waiting for more time before we give our time to the things that matter most. You'll never have more time. In fact, if you were to suddenly be given more time, you would fill it up with everything but those things you say that matter most. So you guys know what I'm talking about. When suddenly you get a day off, and do you take that day and spend it developing your heart's, desire, your passion project? No, you probably spend it sleeping, watching TV, gossiping on the phone. And at the end of the day, you're like, what the heck did I do with my day? So because you're not disciplined in really focusing your time on what matters most. You have to begin to give up your time to the things that matter most now. Now you have to begin to reorganize your calendar and your priorities and your plans around what matters most. Not tomorrow, not next year when you get a promotion or when you finally get that money or that whatever. Now you have to start making the priority. And when you do that, that begins to open up that channel, and you find more energy, more inspiration, and you find more time. And what you find is that what happens, you stop doing a lot of things that were wasting your time, and suddenly you have more time. And you find that you're able to get more done in the time you have. That means you actually have more time. You follow? Time expands in terms of your ability to be present and to circulate and to get things done. And then before you know it, you experience greater and greater freedom. And then you have your talent. So talent, you all have gifts. You want to write that book, launch that program, start that business, create that work of art, but you tell yourself, I don't have the time. I don't have the support. I'm not good enough yet. What if they think I'm bad? I'll get rejected. I'll be humiliated. All of these things, and you're waiting for the right moment. You're waiting to feel safe, secure, confident, and sure. Then you're going to step out and give your gifts. No, you never will. You have to begin stepping out, leaning in, living, and giving your gifts today. If you're a singer, put on a concert for your cat. If you're a writer, make time on your schedule every day to start writing. Write badly. Don't get it right, just get it written. If you're a speaker, start giving talks in your underwear while you're walking around your apartment or your house. That's what I did. People are always like, oh my God, you're so articulate and you speak so well. And how did you do that? And it's like the first time I got on the air doing a guest spot, they thought that was the first time I ever spoke. But I had been giving talks in my underwear for a long time. Or while I was driving in my car, my wife used to wake up, look over, and I'm driving, and I'm like giving a talk, while I'm driving across the country. So I was always giving of my gifts. I was doing the work when nobody was looking. And as a result of that, I developed to such a point where that gift had to seek a bigger platform in the world. And that's the thing. As you circulate these qualities, they will find bigger and bigger platforms to express. Or think of it like this. I'll give you one example. I'll turn it back over to you. Think of it like a little plant in a pot. If that little plant in that little pot was looking at all the bigger pots and saying, one day I'm going to be in a bigger pot, so I'm going to sit here and wait for that bigger pot to come. Or why don't I get a bigger pot? I want to be out in the big field. Why can't I be a big tree? It's not fair. What's wrong with me? What's wrong with them? What would happen to that little plant? It would stay in a little pot. But if it goes, okay, this is the pot I've got. I'm going to be a big plant. I'm going to be as big of a plant as I can be in this pot. And it starts digging its roots down, filling out that pot, stretching its branches as high and as wide as it can. What's going to happen to that plant? It's going to get replanted in a bigger pot. And it's going to keep getting replanted. And that's what happens when we fully show up in this example with our time, our talent, and our treasure. When we give of ourselves and express ourselves fully and authentically and fill out the place we've been planted, we will be given a larger place to bloom.
Woohoo! I want to go to the other 6 gifts briefly, but before we do that, there was a theme that came up from this giving out that I think is so important for people, and it's something that you experienced, you were challenged with. I think we all get challenged with, particularly when we feel our time is tight or our money is tight, retraction versus expansion.
Yes. Yeah, so that's one of the hypnotic wealth spells or the abundance blind spots, which is the belief that we must the hypnotic wealth spell or the abundance blind spot is we must adapt to conditions, right? So, we're in a recession. Okay, I got to shrink down my expectations. I got to cut back on my charitable giving. I got to budget down and spend less and tighten up the belt and all that kind of stuff. And the problem with that is that you're shrinking your channel. You're basically saying there's not enough to go around. I'm going to shrink my channel and I'm going to flow less. Mm-hmm. And now on the other side of that recession or whatever the challenge is, what's going to happen? You're going to have a smaller channel. You're going to have shrunk your circulation and you're going to have less, not more. And so instead, the truth is because there's infinite abundance, infinite supply, infinite opportunity, infinite organizing power, you want to expand in the face of contraction. You want to recognize that problem you're facing, your potential is always bigger than the problem. You want to begin to stop being afraid of what's facing you and start telling the problem to be afraid of what's facing it. That's right. It's like stop telling your little God about your big problems and start telling your little problems about your big God. It's like, hey, problem, you think I'm afraid of facing you? You should be afraid of what you're facing because I've got all that I need here to overcome you. And we have to flip it and expand and ask, who do I have to become? What qualities do I have to embrace or embody in order to be free, to be at peace in the midst of this challenge? Or if I already was on the other side of this, if I got the solution I needed or got the thing that seemed missing, who would I be? How would I feel? How would I show up in the world? And then we begin to practice and act from that place in the midst of that contraction. And what we'll do is we'll expand our channel, we'll strengthen our capacity. And on the other side of that challenge, we will be a bigger channel as a result of that challenge. That's how it's meant to roll. And I remember years ago having this experience when I first experienced it, where we were in a recession and I was like, oh my God, I got to stop my tithing and all my charitable giving. I got to cut back, cut down. And then this dropped in and it said, wait a second, if you are an infinite being with infinite capacity, how would you react to this? And it suddenly dropped in. I wouldn't cut back. I would circulate even more, right? It's like when the stock market goes down, the savvy investors buy more of it.
Yeah.
Because then when it goes up, they multiply their return. Whereas the scared investor sells off and runs away, and then they have less on the other side of that stock market correction. It's the exact same thing. We have to expand in the face of contraction. We use the challenge to make us bigger and stronger.
Thank you. I won't go too much into blind spots. We'll let people get the book. Everybody's going to want to get this book. Get the book. Get the book. But little subliminal action there.
Yes.
I find it brilliant. But are there easy ways to tell if we have abundance blind spots?
Well, I'll start off by saying, just accept that you do. That we're all hypnotized to a greater or lesser degree. And when you're hypnotized, you see things that aren't there and you don't see things that are there. So we're all hypnotized. We're not experiencing life as it is. We're experiencing life through the perceptual filters, our own perceptual filters. We're not experiencing life directly. And so obviously one of the ways you know you have a blind spot, and you can just think of it as a limited belief. I get into the specific blind spots and the specific beliefs. If you're struggling, if you're stagnating, then you have a blind spot. Somewhere, some way, one of those core abundance blind spots or hypnotic wealth spells you are harboring, whether it's the belief that I have to believe it to receive it, that money is not spiritual, that I have to adapt to conditions, et cetera, one of those you have. And when you go through that section, and you'll use that as a diagnostic tool to determine where your greatest abundance blind spot is. Because you'll start to read, I break it down where I say, here are the signs and symptoms of it. And you'll start to read it and go, oh, there I am. And then you'll know. And the beginning of becoming free and awake is the realization that you're asleep. So the minute you begin to see, oh my God, that's me. Oh my God, I've been thinking that way and thinking that's just normal. Oh my God, that's the beginning of waking up. And then as you practice it, you can wake up fully and ultimately inoculate yourself from these thought viruses that are keeping so many of us trapped in a sense of lack and limitation.
Thank you. We've got 7 gifts. We don't quite have the, I want to phrase it differently. We're going to prioritize the time so that we may not get to all 7. Is there 1 or 2 of the 7 gifts that are most important for people to think of, or that they may think of the least, if that makes any sense?
Well, the giving to yourself, which we just talked about, is one of the most important gifts and the least often circulated gift for the heart-centered, spiritually inclined individual. Because to really give to ourselves, to really take care of ourselves, is selfish. And we have a lot of shadows around being selfish, around being a bad boy, a bad girl. You know, we go when we're little and we ask for something from mommy or daddy, and mommy or daddy is too busy or tired, and they say, don't you see how tired mommy is? Or don't you see how busy daddy is? And we feel shamed and scared and wronged for wanting what we want and asking for what we need. So we go, ooh, in this world, that's bad. That's not good. That part of me that wants what I want and asks for what I need, dangerous. So we repress that. It becomes a shadow. And then we create a mask to counterbalance that. And instead we become the people pleaser, the helper, the caretaker, mommy's little helper, daddy's little helper. And we think that's the way I'm going to get what I need, right? I can't ask for it. I can't want it because that's bad. I'm going to get in trouble. And I'm going to get rejected and I'm going to be alone and I'm going to die. I mean, it literally is that deep. So, but if I'm nice, if I'm good, if I don't want too much, if I don't ask for too much, then mommy and daddy will love me. Then they'll keep me. Then they'll keep taking care of me. If I just take care of them and be a good boy, good girl. Well, we grow up to be a version of that, right? And I know a lot of you are going, oh my God, has he been reading my diary? But what starts to happen is we develop the ability to be that way, and we get good at it, and that's good. You know, a lot of heart-centered, spiritually minded people are really loving and generous and kind and of service. That's beautiful, but it's only half of you. And for many of you, that has only taken you so far, and now it's backfiring. Now you feel resentful. Now you feel angry that you're not getting your needs met. You feel afraid that you never will. You don't even know what your needs are anymore. It's been so long since you've really, truly made you a priority. Or you just withdraw from relationships, withdraw from the world, and just kind of isolate and be alone because you don't feel like there's any other way you can really be with yourself. So for you, this is the most important gift to get started. As I talked about earlier, you want to begin to ask, what do I really want and need? Or wherever you're waiting for something, ask that question I said earlier and start really being selfish. Start really saying yes to your yes. Start really giving yourself what you need. Understand, all of life is on your side, but you have to be on your own side for life to come through you. And life is not judging you for wanting and giving yourself all that you need. Life is championing you and cheerleading you, saying, take care of yourself, say yes to yourself, go for what you want, ask for what you need, charge what you're worth. You need to. Then you'll be strong enough to start giving and serving and creating at the level you were really meant to. So that's a critical gift for many, many people. Yeah, it's really big. That's really important for most heart-centered, spiritually inclined people. And then one other gift I think that's really powerful and maybe overlooked, although it's come into the zeitgeist more in the last few years, is giving away. The gift giving away represents in your home, your closets, your car, your cupboards, there's all kinds of junk. There's all kinds of clothes and boxes and stuff that you don't use, you never are going to use, and it's stuck energy. It's stuck emotion. It's a stuck story. Whether it's that stack of magazines that you subscribe to one late night on an infomercial and you're like, damn it, I'm not going to get rid of those until I read them. You're not going to read them. Or, whatever it is you're keeping, holding back, all those clothes in your closet you don't get rid of, but you've never worn them, or you don't wear them, you haven't worn them for years, you're not going to wear them. Oh, but one day I might need that. You're not going to wear it. So all of that is, if you really look at that, it's stuck energy, and everything is energy. And it's all got to keep flowing. So giving away is going through your life. Mm-hmm. And anything that you haven't used in a couple of years, anything that is not bringing you joy, you need to either throw it away, give it away, or sell it. And as you move all that out, you're going to find it brings up a lot. You're going to find, oh my God, but what if I need this someday? Or, oh my God, how could I have bought this thing that I never wore? How stupid could I have been? Or whatever. There's a lot of unexpressed emotion there. And that's okay. But all of that is stuck energy. As you give it away, what's going to happen is now what's new, what's next can flow into your space again. In fact, my partner just went back to her mom's house, and they were trying to sell it, and they had not gotten any offers on the house. Mm-hmm. And so she started cleaning out and getting rid of and giving away, because her mom was holding on to so much stuff. And as she talked her mom through it and began to give it away, sell it, throw it away, lots and lots of stuff down in the basement, which is a metaphor, obviously. 24 hours later, they had an offer on the house. So this is powerful. I just got chills just now when I just think about that, because it's powerful. And there was the book, The Magic Art of Tidying Up, which was a phenomenal New York Times bestseller. And in there, she says, the act of cleaning away and clearing away all the things you don't really need, there's almost a mystical experience that happens. And I remember when I saw that, I was like, oh yeah, that's what I've been telling people for a long time. That's a powerful thing. So you can all do that today. You can start as part of your abundance project, the project to start clearing out all of the junk, all of the stuff that you don't have, and circulate it so that it goes somewhere where it plays a real role, where it fulfills something. And watch as more starts to flow into your life that you can actually use, and it actually brings you more joy.
Woohoo! How did you go, Derek, from living in an apartment to your dream home in just 3 months?
Well, that was exactly the process of what I said before about the little plant filling out its pot. Instead of looking out and wondering, oh, someday, if only, when, why me? So we were living in an apartment, and we wanted a home because we had a child, and wanted a yard and all that. And I couldn't even begin to afford it. Couldn't even wrap my head around how that was possible. But I knew the principles, I knew the practices, and I was practicing them. And so we started by, creating a vision. You have to have a vision for what you want to create. And I talk a lot about this in Emergence. But I do talk about it in the Abundance Project, specific to your abundance vision. So we had a vision about what would, our dream home look like and feel like, and how would we feel if we were living in it, and who would we be, and how would we be showing up. And then we began to show up in this apartment as those people. And we began to treat this space as if it was our dream home, and beautify it as much as we could. Fresh flowers, we just began to bring the joy, the abundance mindset, the power, the excitement, the energy to that place. And then we leaned into the vision by taking action and going to, homes and model homes, and actually starting to look for our dream home, and talking to the realtors and finding how much, and talking to the bankers and seeing how to get credit. In other words, we didn't wait for the condition to match it. We didn't wait to have enough time, enough money, enough answers. We became the answer we were looking for. We leaned into the vision as if it was real, because that desire, that impulse for that dream home in this case, desire comes from a root that means of the sire, or of the father, or of the creative principle. It's literally that desire is not a sign of what's outside of you that you have to go get. It's a sign of what's already in you trying to get out. It's trying to be born. So when you're pregnant with a child, you don't go, well, I hope someday I'll have a baby. That would be crazy, right? When you feel the kick of the baby, you know you have a baby. You start nurturing it, cultivating that relationship, creating a nursery, building a life to give birth to that baby into. You don't wait. You start living as a mother now, or as a father too. So that's what we did. We began to live as individuals that had their dream home, live as individuals that were giving birth to their dream home. And as we did that, we would come home to our apartment and cross that threshold. We'd feel so amazing after being in the model homes and dreaming. We'd feel so connected to that energy. And we'd cross over, and all of a sudden we'd feel like a drop. It'd be like, oh, this place is dark, and oh my God, it's the contrast, right? But then as we kept doing the inner work and the outer work, one day I remember crossing that threshold, and that feeling didn't go away. That feeling of, I'm home, I'm in my dream home. I felt it walking into this place. And then another thing happened was I no longer had the urgency or even a need for the dream home because I was living in the dream home energetically. A couple days later, I was in my office, had a flash of a vision, and in a moment, I saw how we could and how we would have our dream home. And within about a month and a half from that date, we were moving into our dream home. So this is the process. And I walk you guys through that in the Abundance Project so that you can do this for whatever area you're trying to grow in your life, whether it's a new home, a new job, your dream work, whatever. This principle works, as I also lay down in the foundations of the book Emergence.
Thank you. So I want to take off my coaching hat real briefly, put it on you. What one homework assignment would you give people today so they have to take action to begin on their own abundance project?
Yeah, I would say, look at those couple of gifts we just talked about. Pick something that we've talked about, whether it's giving of your time, talent, and treasure, giving to yourself, or some area where you want to have a dream this or a dream that, saying a job, a business, a home, and actually create a real practice and a real plan around it. Ask those questions. Listen to this recording again. Listen to the replay of it, and go back and see those places where I walk you step by step through how, if something's missing in your environment, how to begin asking the right questions to begin activating it and filling yourself up with it, and then how to begin to circulate it. Or if you want to begin to grow your dream home or dream business, listen back to that piece where I talked about step by step what to do. But do something, take some action around this information, because knowledge is not power. Knowledge that is acted upon and activated is power. I don't want this to be more inspiration, more information, and then you become, it just becomes spiritual constipation. I want you to actually circulate this knowledge by practicing it, by acting on it. And then go get the book. Go listen to my podcast of the same name, The Abundance Project, and begin to practice today. And I promise it works. Again, it's not personal. It's a principle.
Woohoo! On that note, where can people go to find out more, to find your podcast, and to find your book, The Abundance Project?
You can go, obviously, you can get the book wherever fine books are sold. But you can also go to www.theabundanceprojectbook.com. That's theabundanceprojectbook.com. And if you buy it through there, you'll get over $1,200 in bonuses, including live coaching with me, a mastermind group where we're going to work together on your abundance project, and others that are working on their abundance project. So you're going to get real support, live coaching, a mastermind, all that you need so that this book doesn't just become more shelf help. It makes your shelf look really nice. You walk by it and feel good about yourself because you have it on the shelf, but rather it becomes really self-help, really transformational. So get the book over there at theabundanceprojectbook.com. Get the bonuses, get in the mastermind, the coaching with me, and let's make this the most abundant year of your life. And while you're waiting for the book, go to the Abundance Project podcast and begin listening to that, download those, and I give you practices to begin starting today.
Fantastic. What would you tell parents to help their kids so that they grow up already in the flow, already understanding these laws, already circulating?
Yeah, well, kids know how to do it naturally until we mess with them. It's like kids know how to have naturally, and then what happens is parents, in some cases, try to take what the kids have and make them share it before they've really embodied having. So as a parent, let your child experience what it means to own stuff, to have their stuff. Don't judge them. Don't shame them. Don't call them selfish because they don't want to share right away. Let them acknowledge when they're like saying, this is mine. Go, yes, honey, that's yours. How does that feel to really have that, honey? Feels good, mommy, daddy. Yeah, that's awesome, isn't it? And like, let them really fill up with feeling I have, it's okay to possess. It's okay to have. And then watch as naturally when they feel strong and secure in that. And I've seen this happen where it's like, it's awesome. You have that. Wow, you have so much. How does that feel? It feels great. And then they're like, you want some? Cool. It happens naturally. They want to share now when they feel they have. So don't note, as a parent, remember what we're often doing is projecting on our children our unhealed wounds. So because we never really got to feel like we had, we'll often force our child to share before it's time. And then what that does is it breaks the circuit. They never really feel like they have, and they're much more likely to be selfish and stingy down the line, to hoard and to hold on, or to just give it all away because what's the point? Or to give it away because they think that's the way they'll be loved. So you have to be very mindful of that. If you just really listen to them and really honor their natural tendencies and validate them and let them own and feel whatever stage they're at, they will naturally grow to the next stage. And if it pushes your buttons, don't put it on them. Come into our group, get some support to find out what your shadow is, work on your shadow, heal your shadow so that you can break that legacy for your lineage for good.
Woohoo!
The last thing I'll say is I want you to understand that what we're talking about today is not theoretical. It's truth. It's not, I didn't make it up. When you really start to understand this, go back and read the great ancient texts and you'll start to recognize, they're saying the same thing. That's what happened to me after I had my spiritual opening. I went back, read the Bibles of the world, the Bhagavad Gita, the Buddhist text, the Christian text. I was like, I could have had a V8. Like I suddenly got it. And so this is truth. It's really true that everything you need to be all that you were created to be is already in you. The world can't give it to you, and the world can't take it away. You've come here to unleash it, to release, as the poet Robert Browning said, your imprisoned splendor. This is true. And so if you do nothing else, here's a meditation to practice every day. And just take a moment right now and ask yourself, close your eyes and ask, if I truly believed and knew that I had everything I need to be all that I was created to be within me, how would I hold myself today? How would I show up today? What would I do or go for today? And what would I stop doing today? If I really knew and believed all of my needs were met, that everything I needed was within me, how would I show up? Who would I be? What would I do? And what would I stop doing? And just let that roll around in your awareness right now. And notice what starts to bubble up. What images, what impulses, what feelings, maybe a fragment of a memory. And you'll start to hear little whispers of things you've thought before and felt before and wanted to do or be before, but have been waiting. They're now bubbling up again. And they're bubbling up to say, now is your time. And so continue to ask that question. As those bubble up, write them down. And then notice the one that you feel the greatest pull towards, or maybe even the greatest fear of. And do that. Take that step today. And if you really want to really master this, get an accountability partner to do it with and to hold you accountable for doing the practice. And that's what we're going to do in the Abundance Project, in the Mastermind, is you're going to find people that can hold you lovingly accountable. So when you ask that question and it says, if I really believe that, I would start writing my book today. I would start exercising or go to yoga today. I would take some time off today to go to the beach and just enjoy, or go in nature, or go to the park with my child, or go on a date with my beloved, or have a conversation with my boss. You write it down. And then you actually start to create a plan with a partner who can support you to do those things. When you start doing that, a whole new world of possibility is going to open up for you. So just feel that energy. Feel now the energy of commitment. Just feel what it feels like to be committed. And breathe into that. And move that energy of commitment now right to that little piece of guidance that's bubbling up. And see that energy of commitment wedded to that guidance, merging with that guidance. This is alchemy. You're now bringing a level of commitment energy to this guidance that will allow you to open up a whole nother level of your abundance. Take another breath into your heart and just know that something has been activated and established. And all that remains now is for you to act on it. As I think it was Ralph Waldo Emerson said, God suffers a stillbirth every time we do not act on the good that we know. Now you know. Now it's time to act. I hope that serves you, and I love and appreciate you guys, and so grateful to have the chance to be here.
Woohoo! It's been phenomenal having you on the show, Derek.
Thank you.
Can't thank you enough. No, we got to let you go. So for everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, get the Abundance Project, and begin circulating your own abundance today, and shine bright. Woohoo! Thank you so much, Derek. This was truly phenomenal.
Thank you, man. It was my pleasure, my joy. It's fun. You bring a lot of fun, a lot of play. It's great.
Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like below. Also, leave your comments. Have some real fun with it. Subscribe to our channel where you're going to get more great videos, more interviews coming up. And check out our website, inspirenationshow.com. That's where you'll find tips, blogs, information, videos you won't find anywhere else, and useful and helpful resources to really help you kickstart your life and to shine bright. Thanks so much again. Thank you for your support. Like, comment, subscribe. See the website. Thanks so much and have fun. Of course, shine bright. Woohoo!